Bonjour, Year 7. Welcome to this week's online lesson on the topic of holidays. We're going to begin the last couple of weeks of this year. We'll be talking about holidays. So today's lesson is going to be another walkthrough lesson, recapping something briefly we did last week on school. And then also we're going to look at talking about your holidays in French. And we're going to start with a couple of questions. You can write the answers to these questions down in your book if you'd like, or if you're maybe doing this with a parent, you can discuss the questions with your parent. First of all, which is the most popular destination for holidays for French people? What is surprising about this picture of Paris? Which are the most popular foreign countries for French holidaymakers? And where in France exactly might French people go skiing, or in fact anybody else? If you'd like to discuss those, you're very welcome. Pause the video now and have a little chat through those questions there. Okay, well, a little clue there in the image, but in fact, France is the most popular destination for French people. It's such a big country with a really wide variety of different types of holidays that you can take, whether it's fantastic beaches, particularly along the south and the west coast of France, and in fact the north as well. There are mountain ranges, there's beautiful countryside in the middle. There's lots of interesting cities, of course Paris, but other cities that are really interesting, also history, if you fancy a holiday like that. So it's no real surprise really that with being such a big country, about twice as big as the UK, France is, that French people choose mainly to go on holiday in their own country. Well, the picture of Paris is perhaps surprising because it contains a beach, and if you look, if you know your French geography a little bit, you'll know Paris isn't actually near the sea at all. So that is in fact the river, but you can still stay in Paris and go to the beach. Every year the Paris authorities bring in tons of sand and create a beach along the banks of the River Seine, which is called Paris Plage. The word plage is a word for beach. So you may want to write that down. That may come in useful later on in the lesson. The most popular foreign countries for French holidaymakers. Well, this is something to do with the geography of France and also countries with which it shares a border. Therefore, the most popular country is Spain, followed by Italy and Germany. Of course, France shares a land border with 4 other countries, at least 4 off the top of my head. I wonder if you want to pause the video now and go and research which those are. Maybe you can see if you can work them out. Well, France shares a land border with Switzerland as well, which, if you follow my mouse there, around about here. Further north, it has a land border with Belgium, and there was a very small, 2 small land borders, one with a small country of Luxembourg up here, and then further down here, between France and Spain, there's a very small country called Andorra. And so therefore, France, mainland France anyway, contains borders with at least 7 countries. Now, there are actually 1 or 2 places around the world which are part of France, but are not on mainland France. And again, if you can go pause the video and maybe go and have a look where those places are, you might be able to find actually that France shares land borders with a few more countries as well. Okay, so technically, there are 3 other countries with which mainland France shares a border. Now, there's this tiny island in the Caribbean called Saint Martin, and you can notice here it's split into 2. This is technically part of, the north part here is technically part of France. It's as French as the middle of Paris is, except it just happens to be in the Caribbean. But legally it's exactly part of France. And the southern half of the island is owned by the Netherlands in exactly the same way. It's just exactly as Dutch as Amsterdam is. And so technically the land border that's shared between the 2 is a land border between France and the Netherlands. This airport is one of the most famous airports in the world because you can see it's right next to a beach, and you can find videos on YouTube if you type in Saint Martin Airport. This is a very popular place for plane spotters to spot planes coming in, because the runway is very short and the planes come right over the beach. So they get really, really low. I think it's quite dangerous, but it's quite interesting. The second place abroad, which is part of France, is this country here called French Guiana, and lots of French people live there, and it shares a border here, as you can see, with the country of Suriname and with Brazil. So even right in South America, there is a part of France that exists, and they share land borders with other countries. So there you go, a little bit of history there for you, a little bit of geography knowledge as well. And so next time somebody asks, or you can ask somebody, which countries share a land border with France, you can tell them that technically Brazil does, and they'll be very surprised. Forgot one other one as well. There's a very small principality called Monaco on the south coast, and that is technically a foreign country. So we must be up to about 9 or 10 there. Where in France might French people go skiing? Lots of French people go à la neige and faire du ski in the Alps or the Pyrenees. Some of you may have been to the Alps. Maybe some of you have maybe been to the Pyrenees, although it's mainly the Alps that British people go to. During the long summer holidays, something different here. Many French children go off to un colo. It's une colonie de vacances, holiday camp. A little bit similar to what we might think of Butlins or Pontins in England, but or Centre Parks even maybe. It's somewhere in between those places, and it's a very, very popular thing to do for French children. One of the things we're going to look at in the next few weeks is a croque monsieur, possibly one of the dishes you could make if you were wanting to do a challenge this week as your extension. It's kind of like a toasted cheese and ham sandwich, but the sauce on top is slightly different. There's a sauce on top that they use called bechamel sauce, and you could go and have a look at what goes into bechamel sauce. It's very easy to make. Even I can make it. And like most European countries, France uses the euro as its currency. It's very simple to use. There are 100 cents in a euro. The euro symbol is it's written down there, as you know, and you write it after the number with a comma between the euros and the cents. So 2,50 would be €2.50. Asks in the right-hand corner, should the UK change from pounds to euros? Now, it's a little bit outdated, that, because this book that we use happened before the Brexit. And so, but that's maybe a question you can ask your parents. Do you think the UK should have changed from pounds to euros? Now, if you go back before you were all born to roughly, well, it was just before you were all born, yeah, about 2005 maybe, there were conversations in Britain that we seriously came quite close to joining the euro, but in the end we decided to keep with a good old pound, and most people think that was probably a good idea, a good sensible idea. But there we are, lots of countries, and again you can pause the video if you like and go and have a look at which countries also use the euro. There are lots of them. Okay, on to today's activities. In the top left I've given you a word here, the word for and is I. Okay, don't be tempted to pronounce it et, but it's pronounced I. And I want you to go back to last week's learning, and there are 15 points on offer here. 1 point if you can give me a correct opinion, and then 1 point each for the correct subject. So I'm going to give you bonus points after you've completed this for your accuracy in your spellings and your accents. 15 points available. Can you write down your answers? Pause the video in a second. Write down your answers on paper or on your Word document and see how many of those 15 points that are up for grabs you can get. Okay, I hope you paused the video there. I'm going to run through the answers for you. 5 opinions we gave last week, so here we go. As I said, 1 point for each of these. Number 1, je n'aime pas. It's your negative opinion for I don't like. La géographie et l'histoire. So 3 points. 1 if you've got je n'aime pas. 1 if you've got la géographie, but an additional point if you remember the accent on the E. You can still get a point if you've got the géographie with the IE at the end, but if you've got the accent as well, that's another point. And l'histoire, there, remember the O and the I go the other way around to maybe how we think, or at the end of the word is spelled slightly differently. Numéro 2, j'aime bien. 1 point for that. Or if you've put any positive opinion phrase, that's fine, because it's not exactly clear what the smiley face really represents. L'anglais et le PS. Okay, 1 point for the opinion, 1 point each for the 2 subjects. Number 3, j'aime les sciences et le français. 1 point additionally if you remember the cedilla underneath the C, which gives it the S sound. Number 4, je déteste le dessin et l'informatique. Le dessin et l'informatique. Give yourself a point for each of those. 1 point if you remember the accent on je déteste. And finally, j'adore le théâtre et les maths. An additional point if you remember either of the accents on the word théâtre. And don't forget the pronunciation théâtre, les maths. And so the TH sound is a th sound. Okay. Last week we looked at the verb to want. You can go back and have a look at your notes if you like, or have a little think. What were the missing letters as an activity we did last week? What were the missing letters on the word to want to do something? Pause the video now, and then I'll go through the answers. Okay, I want, je veux, with an X at the end. You want, tu veux, with an X on the end. He wants, il veut, with a T on the end. She wants, elle veut, with a T on the end. And we want, on veut, with a T at the end. Now today we're going to look at, this is what you would call this is not a full verb because verbs have 6 forms in French. I, you, he or she, we, you, and they. However, we're going to look at a couple of different verbs today, all to do with the holidays topic. But the first one, I want you to, once you've listened to me repeat it, I want you to pause the video and I want you to write down the verb. So this week's verbs are to go, which is the verb aller, A-L-L-E-R, and to stay, which is the verb rester, R-E-S-T-E-R. You don't need to know those two right now. But if you just listen to these, in a minute I'll pause the video and I'm going to ask you to write down the verb in full because you're going to revisit it later in the lesson. Right, I go. You can repeat this after me, just so you practice the pronunciation. Je vais. Je vais. You go is tu vas. Tu vas. He goes. Il va. Il va. She goes. Elle va. Elle va. And we go. On va. So last week we looked at, there were the same pronouns here on the left. Je, I, tu, you, il, he, elle, she, and on, we. Now technically, on is like the English equivalent of saying one, as in one went to the shops last week. But we think that sounds a little bit old-fashioned sometimes in English, and so we don't really use it very much. But we do use it in French, particularly when speaking. But there is another form of we, maybe a little bit more sort of official, and I'm going to give you this form as well. Nous allons. Okay, nous allons also means we go. It doesn't matter which one you use, as long as you use on va or nous allons. Both of those are fine. So pause the video now for me, please. Write those 6 versions of the verb down for me. Okay. We're going to look at the verb to stay in a minute. First of all, you can have a look at that verb one more time and then see how much of the next slide you can fill in, maybe without looking at your notes, and then you can use your notes to help you. What gaps can you fill in there from what we looked at? Pause the video again and take as long as you need. Okay, remember the verb in full again. Je vais, tu vas, il va, he goes, elle va, she goes. On va, we go, or you can use nous allons. One thing I teach my students is that if you have a look at this verb, one way of remembering it is that it loses a letter each time. From the first to the second one, it loses the I, and then it loses the S. So each time it reduces in form. And then you'll find that the nous form has a completely different form entirely. Je vais, tu vas, il va, elle va, on va, nous allons. And see if you can practice saying that again, just to kind of get it into your head. Je vais, tu vas, il va, elle va, on va, nous allons. One more activity there. You're going to have to match this now in the correct order. So put the verb in the right order for the order we just did it, and then fill in the gaps again. Pause the video now if you need a little bit more time. So the first one we come across, we always take I in to be the first one. I go, and it matches up with je vais. You go, number 2. Tu vas. He goes, loses a letter again. Il va. She goes will be the next one. Elle va. And finally, I've used the full form nous. Nous allons is the verb number 5. Okay, the second verb we're going to look at today. So there we go. We're going to park the aller on the left-hand side there, the verb to go, and we're going to look at the verb to stay. I stay. Je reste. Again, repeat this aloud if you like. It's very good for you to repeat it so you can associate the sound with the word. Je reste. You stay. Tu restes. Look at the difference there, but listen to the pronunciation difference. Je reste. Tu restes. There's no difference in pronunciation. The S at the end here is silent. He stays. Il reste. She stays. Elle reste. We stay. On reste. And so the sound here is exactly the same each time. Je reste, tu restes, il reste, elle reste, on reste. And the final one, I'm going to give you the full form of the we, nous restons. Now, I know that the verb looks like it's the verb, it looks like maybe to rest, but it's not really. It's not. It means to stay somewhere. So just be aware that's a little bit of what we call a false friend. And so that verb at the end, nous restons, is the only one that's really very different there. Remember, the tu restes has an S on the on the end there. So again, pause the video and can you write that verb out in full with the French and the English, please? And you're going to need that for the next little activity. Okay, so imagine you're going on your holidays around Europe, or slightly further afield. You need to know how to describe the country. So what I want you to do here is I want you to listen to me saying the country, and then you can repeat it after I've said it. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is to pause your video at the end, and again make a little list, please, of the countries and how they are spelt in French. Je vais. What does je vais mean? Je vais, you might remember from the last slide, means I go. So we're talking about where you go, maybe normally, I go. And then if you repeat the full phrase for me each time. Je vais en France. Je vais en France. Je vais en Angleterre. Je vais en Angleterre. Je vais en Écosse. Je vais en Écosse. Je vais au Pays de Galles. Je vais au Pays de Galles. Je vais en Irlande. Je vais en Irlande. Je vais en Espagne. Je vais en Espagne. Je vais au Portugal. Je vais au Portugal. Je vais en Allemagne. Je vais en Allemagne. Je vais en Italie. Je vais en Italie. Je vais en Grèce. Je vais en Grèce. Je vais en Turquie. Je vais en Turquie. Je vais aux États-Unis. Je vais aux États-Unis. One more time, that last one. Je vais aux États-Unis. It's quite hard. It doesn't sound very much like it looks. Okay, so there we go. That's how you say I go to France, England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Spain, Portugal, Germany, Italy, Greece, Turkey, and the United States. What do you notice, first of all, about the words that are on the board? First of all, the names of the countries themselves. Which ones might be what we call cognates? Which ones might be what we call near cognates? Which ones might be non-cognates? So the cognate there, the only one I can spot there as a cognate is France. It's exactly the same, obviously, as we say in English. A very near cognate is Italy. Some of them are near cognates. Oh, Portugal, sorry, is a cognate as well. Some of them are near cognates. Ireland. You could argue that Greece is obviously a near cognate, and Turkey. Some others are much further away. For example, Le Pays de Galles. The French don't use the letter W. They use the G instead often, so that's how that's come about. And the United States kind of looks, if you substitute a couple of letters in, you can see there as well. There's another difference there to do with the colours that the labels are displayed in. What are they? Well, the orange ones signify, as I said last week, each noun in French has a gender assigned to it. It's either masculine or it's feminine. And that even applies to countries, can you believe? So some countries are, the words themselves are feminine, and these are the ones highlighted in orange. So when you use a feminine country to say I'm going somewhere or I'm in somewhere, you use this little word en. There are two here that are AU. These are masculine countries. I'll tell you why in a minute. And then the only other one that's exception is the green, AUX. This is because this is a plural country. I'll tell you why this is now. So you can practice that once or twice more. You can rewind the video if you like. And what I want you to do is to pause the video now and write those countries down somewhere in your book so that you have them and that you will need them for your next activity. Pause the video now if you need. I'm going to now explain the different prepositions. Before we go on, you can do a little test here. How many I've taken away the labels? How many of the countries can you remember? Again, pause the video to do a little test. And if you don't know, maybe go back and have a look at what you've written down and see if you can remember it after that. Okay, so there's an explanation. This little word at the start, either en, au, or aux, it's called a preposition. Okay, it tells you where something is at or to or in. Okay, and I'm going to explain to you. I want you to maybe copy some notes down from this slide as well, if you can, please. Something that is not the most important part of the sentence, but if you can get it right, then it's brilliant. So here we go. If the country ends is feminine, and you know this because they end in e, then you're going to use the little preposition en. If the country is masculine, ends in a consonant or any other vowel that's not an e, basically, then you're going to use the preposition au. The only two examples of this in this case are Wales and Portugal. Or Pays de Galles and or Portugal, both of them end in consonants. And finally, if the country is plural, in this case we're going to look at only the USA, but there are a few other countries, much smaller countries, that are plural countries. And if you think about it, the United States is made up of many states, and so that's why the country is plural. So when you're referring to going to the United States or being in the United States, then you need to use this preposition AUX. Pause the video if you need to copy anything down from that slide. And I'm going to get you to do a little exercise. You're going to write 1 to 8. And I want you to translate the following sentences for me. Again, you're going to get 1 point for the verb, the correct verb, and then 1 point for the country. And you're also going to get 1 point for the correct preposition, either en, au, or aux. So what I want you to do is to write out the sentence. Have a go at the first one now. Pause the video for a second. Have a go at the first one. If you don't quite understand what I mean, watch me do the first one, and then you can pause the video and have a go at the rest of them. I go to France. You need the correct verb I go. Je vais. 1 point for that. En France. 1 point for the preposition in blue, and 1 point for the correct country, which in this case was very easily in France. There you go. There's 7 more for you to translate. 1 point each for the verb, 1 point for the preposition, 1 point for the country. Pause the video now and see how many of those and how accurately you can do those next 7. Okay, the second one then. We go to the USA. On va, or I will accept nous allons as well. Aux États-Unis. 1 point for the verb, either on va or nous allons. 1 for the preposition aux, 1 for the United States. Don't forget the accent there, please. You go to Portugal. Tu vas au Portugal. Different preposition because Portugal is masculine. We go to Scotland. On va en Écosse. On va en Écosse. She goes to Germany. Elle va en Allemagne. He goes to Spain. Il va en Espagne. I stay in England. Je reste en Angleterre. You stay in Wales. Tu restes with an S on the end. Or AU for masculine country, Pays de Galles. Okay? Right. I'm going to introduce a little bit of vocab to you now. I want you to look at the following slide about les vacances, holidays. There are roughly 13, I think it is, 13 terms here. You can stop the video at any time to go back. I'm going to read out one by one and you can follow the mouse to have a look at what I'm pointing at. First I'm going to go through, I'm just going to repeat the piece of vocab. So the first line at the top is who you would go on holiday with. So, avec des amis. Avec des amis. Avec ma famille. Avec ma famille. Avec mon copain. Avec ma copine. Avec mon copain. Avec ma copine. Seul. Seul. So repeat them again for me this time. I'm going to put the words up underneath the image and a good opportunity to have a look at the words and repeat them as well. So who would you go on holiday with? Avec mes amis. Avec mes amis. Avec ma famille. Avec ma famille. Avec mon copain. Avec mon copine. Mon copain masculine. Ma copine feminine. Boyfriend and girlfriend. Seul. Seul just means alone. Second row is places you might stay in during your holiday. And again, repeat the words for me. I'm going to say them twice and then display it underneath. Dans un hôtel 4 étoiles. Think about what I've just said there. Dans un hôtel 4 étoiles. You should know the word 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dans un hôtel 4 étoiles. Dans une maison. Dans une maison. Dans un camping. Dans un camping. Au bord de la mer. Au bord de la mer. À la montagne. À la montagne. Again, once more through with the words displayed this time. Dans un hôtel 4 étoiles. Dans un hôtel 4 étoiles. It's in a 4-star hotel. 2-star hotel would be 2 étoiles. Dans une maison. Dans une maison. In a house. Dans un camping. Dans un camping. In campsite. Au bord de la mer. Au bord de la mer. By the seaside. À la montagne. À la montagne. In the mountains. And the final 4, again, 4 different types of holidays you can have. À la campagne. À la campagne. Dans une grande ville. Dans une grande ville. En croisière. En croisière. À l'étranger. À l'étranger. À la campagne. À la campagne. It's in the countryside. Dans une grande ville. Dans une grande ville. In a big city. En croisière. En croisière. On a cruise. À l'étranger. À l'étranger. Abroad. So, again, some more vocabulary to write down here, just because you're going to need it again in a second. With my friends, with my family, with my boyfriend or girlfriend, alone, in a 4-star hotel, in a house, in a camping, by the seaside, à la montagne, in the mountains, in the countryside, in a big town, on a cruise, abroad. Need a little bit more time to copy. Pause the video. And then test yourself again. How many of those terms can you remember? And do you need to go back and have a look at some of the ones that you can't remember? Again, having this screen blank on there is a great way of just testing what you can remember. And then obviously it gives you an idea about what you need to go back and have a look at again. Okay, little reading activity for you now. Find out for me, please, either from Adélaïde or Damien, A or D. Have a little read of their little descriptions of their holidays, and find out for me those questions 1 to 6. Just put A or D. I would also like you to write down these 3 words, please, in a little box in your book, please. From last year, we went, and almost. Okay, pause the video now. Have a go at those 6 questions. Okay, who goes to Spain usually? It wasn't too difficult, this. Who goes to Spain? That was Adélaïde. Who normally stays in France? That would be Damien. Who normally goes to the sea? Here's the word au bord de la mer was what we went to, what we looked at in the previous section here, but la mer is by the seaside, so that would be Adélaïde. Damien went to Portugal last year. Adélaïde went to Italy last year. And here are the activités sportives that Damien does. So there are your answers. I'm going to read out the first entry for it, just to get you to listen to it. L'année dernière, nous sommes allés en Italie, mais normalement, nous allons presque tous les ans en Espagne. Nous allons à la mer. Quelquefois, nous allons au restaurant ou nous visitons des monuments. C'est génial. And Damien's reads, l'année dernière, nous sommes allés au Portugal, mais normalement, nous restons en France car mon père travaille. Je retrouve mes copains au centre de loisirs et nous faisons tous les jours des activités sportives. On bavarde et on rigole. Okay, 2 things I want to pick out from here. This phrase, mais normalement, you might recognize the word mais to mean but. So it's talking about what they do last year. L'année dernière means last year. So that's one thing you're wanting to get down there from the blue box. Nous sommes allés, we went en Italie, to Italy. But normally, mais normalement, nous allons, we go nearly every year to Spain. We go to the sea. Quelquefois means sometimes. We go to the restaurant or we visit monuments. It's great. You might recognize here another verb here, nous visitons, and it gets the ONS at the end. It's got the ONS on the end of the word. So sort of pattern there you might start recognizing. L'année dernière, nous sommes allés au Portugal, mais normalement, nous restons en France. We stay in France, because mon père travaille. I know that looks like the word to travel, but it doesn't actually. It means to work. So his dad works, so they don't go anywhere during the summer. Je retrouve mes copains au centre de loisirs. I find my friends, meet my friends at the leisure centre. Nous faisons, we do every day sporting activities. On bavarde et on rigole, we laugh, we chat and we laugh. So you can see here that the word on and the word nous both mean we in this context. You just need to be aware of that. Okay, our final activity today, I'll translate into French. There's a little paragraph there for you, which is in English and with some images. I want you to turn it into a French sentence. I'm going to give you two of the words that we haven't really looked at today to help you out. But normally, as we've looked at in the last section there, mais normalement, and then the other one is the word for when, which is quand, Q-U-A-N-D. So mais normalement, quand. So there you go. I'd like you to pause the video now and see if you can translate the rest of that sentence and turn it into a nice French sentence for me. Pause the video now, otherwise I'm going to go through the answers. Okay, last year, l'année dernière, we went, nous sommes allés to Spain en Espagne. But normally, mais normalement, we go, you can have nous allons or on va, it doesn't matter, to France en France. We stay, nous restons, or on reste, in a 3-star hotel, dans un hôtel 3 étoiles. Last year, l'année dernière, we went, nous sommes allés, with my friends, avec mes amis. Mais normalement, I go with my family, je vais avec ma famille. And if you remember right back at the start of the lesson with the word et, I love, j'adore, when, quand, we go, nous allons, or on va, au bord de la mer. Right, that wraps up the end of today's lesson. As a little extension to the lesson today, you can now maybe go and have a look at making your own little description. Write a short description of what you did last year, and then also maybe give me a description of what you usually do. Okay, using that little paragraph there as a model. If not, that's the end of today's lesson. The extension activity, again, will just be the Around the World in 80 Days booklet, which many people have been returning to us. And that is it for today. Any questions, please feel free to email me or message me on Show My Homework. And I hope you're well.